A court approves the dissolution of the Wang Fuk Court Owners Corporation, assigning a Chinachem company to take over the management. The current cold snap in the city is expected to last until Friday. And the ousted Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro pleads not guilty in a U.S. court, saying he has been kidnapped. Good evening, you're watching Cable News. I'm Evan Bai. In the aftermath of the deadly fire in Taipo, the Lands Tribunal approved a government application to dissolve the management committee of the Wang Fuk Court Owners Corporation. The court noted that Hop On Management, a property management company under the Chinachem Group, will be taken over indefinitely and will donate $10 million to provide a more systemic and professional management of the residential blocks. The tribunal's presiding officer, Michelle Lam, said the firm will hold regular meetings with homeowners, report to the government every month, and will not charge for services. Secretary for Home and Youth Affairs Alex Mack welcomed the court's decision, which marked the first ever use of Section 31 of the Building Management Ordinance to appoint a professional manager as administrator without fees. However, the judge rejected the government's request for the firm to file reports to the tribunal as well, saying the court needs to ensure impartiality and fairness in the event it has to handle matters involving the Taipo estate down the line. More than a month after the disastrous fire, Taipo district councillors urged the authorities to announce the redevelopment timeline as soon as possible, while the government stated it is still considering options for reconstruction work and may present several plans for affected residents to choose from. Jeremy Zhu reports.
In the first Taipo District Council meeting since the tragedy, attendees began with a minute of silence. Former Owners Corporation consultant and district councillor Peggy Wong was at the scene. She urged the authorities to announce a clear, time-bound rehousing plan promptly so Wang Fuk Court residents could continue living with dignity in Taipo. The yet-to-be-announced government plan for reconstruction and rehousing became the focal point of discussion. Councillors stressed residents wish to be rehoused within the district and called for the government to underwrite reconstruction costs, as relief funds are insufficient. It was also proposed that the unaffected Wang Chi House should be included in redevelopment to avoid future management complexities if it remains separate. Shatin, Taipo, and North District Planning Officer Rico Tseng responded that officials are carefully balancing different proposals, with listening to all residents being the immediate priority. During the meeting, a building management task force for the district was also established to collect public opinions on building management and submit corresponding recommendations. Peggy Wong is one of its members. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Many Hong Kongers bundled up in scarves and beanies today to brave the chill, as the winter monsoon brings cooler weather with temperatures expected to drop as low as 11 degrees Celsius over the next few days. Shiro Yun has more.
A cold snap swept through the city overnight, leaving residents reaching for down jackets, scarves, and even beanies as they stepped out into the brisk morning air. For some students, the sudden drop in temperature made getting out of bed a real struggle. It's so cold it made me want to skip school and just stay wrapped up warmly in bed, one student admitted. The cold made me want to hide my hands in my sleeves. Better to tuck in my neck too, another student said. One woman said she was jolted awake by the chill, adding that thicker clothes are now essential for sleeping because a quilt alone is no longer enough. The observatory has warned that cold mornings will persist until Friday, with temperatures dipping to around 11 degrees Celsius in urban areas and a few degrees lower in the new territories. Senior Scientific Officer Tong Yufai explained that cold air from northern and central China is moving south under the influence of the winter monsoon, and this pattern is expected to continue affecting the city. Temperatures should rise slightly over the weekend, but mornings will still feel chilly at around 13 to 14 degrees. Tong urged residents to keep a close eye on the elderly and those with chronic illnesses and to take extra fire safety precautions when using heaters or other warming devices. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.
Scalpers have been seen queuing overnight at the city's only transport department office to grab the limited tickets to apply for a direct issue of Hong Kong driving licenses without test. Some blame the new scheme that allows Guangdong motorists to drive into the city for fueling the scalping. Outside the United Center in Admiralty, long queues could be seen at midnight, with plastic stools used to seat hog, only for quickly snapping tickets once the licensing office opens. This resident arrived at 5 a.m. to queue and saw some people sell tickets for profit, as well as organized commercial queue jumping operations. This licensing office accepts applications for the direct issue of the Hong Kong full driving license without a test, providing a total of 140 queue tickets daily, with 5 applications per transaction. A staff member from a car dealership said the scalpers operate as an organized team with dedicated transport, arranging up to 40 people to snap up the tickets. Since the southbound travel for Guangdong vehicles scheme began, applications for Hong Kong driving licenses from motorists in 4 Guangdong cities have increased. The staff raised concerns about what would happen if the entire province is later included in the southbound travel scheme. In August last year, the TD required ticket collectors to enter both their own and each applicant's identification numbers into the system to combat scalping. Gunfire was heard over Caracas as the Venezuelan capital remains on edge following the U.S. capture of President Nicolas Maduro. Meanwhile, the ousted leader pleaded not guilty to drug and weapon charges in a New York court, saying he had been kidnapped. Jeremy Zhu has the story.
Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were escorted from a Brooklyn detention center to the federal courthouse in Manhattan under heavy armed guard. The couple, along with 4 others, including Maduro's son, who were absent from the hearing, face a 4-count indictment. The charges include narco-terrorism, cocaine trafficking, and possession and conspiracy to possess machine guns. Conviction could carry a life sentence. Outside the court, demonstrators both for and against the U.S. action made their voices heard. The couple pleaded not guilty, with Maduro declaring his innocence, calling himself a decent man and still president of my country, stating his capture was that of a prisoner of war. Meanwhile, plasters were seen on his wife's face. Her lawyer said she was injured during the capture and required medical examinations. As the 30-minute hearing concluded, someone shouted in Spanish that Maduro must pay for his past actions. The case was adjourned until March 17th. The indictment alleges his involvement in drug trafficking began as early as 2000, when he was elected to the National Assembly, leading a cartel-associated narcotics network. Meanwhile, in Caracas, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as interim president, as the country remains in a state of emergency. On the same day, in the Venezuelan capital, gunfire was reported near the presidential palace in the morning. Armed troops were seen pointing their weapons at civilians, before rapidly reinforcing military deployments on the streets. Officials said police had opened fire on an unauthorized drone flight. They asserted there was no broader outbreak of conflict, but did not disclose who was operating the drone. White House officials denied involvement. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Amid tensions over U.S. actions in Venezuela, U.S. President Donald Trump renewed threats to acquire Denmark's semi-autonomous territory of Greenland, prompting sharp warnings from Copenhagen. Cheryl Yun reports.
Trump doubled down on his long-standing interest in Greenland just days after the U.S. forces raided Venezuela. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen warned that any U.S. military action against Denmark would destroy the NATO alliance and the post-World War II security order. She reiterated Denmark's desire to maintain strong ties with the U.S., but firmly rejected any threats to Greenland. NATO members, including Finland, Norway, and Germany, backed Denmark and voiced their full support for their neighbor. Trump has rattled European leaders by seizing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who is now detained in New York. In an interview with NBC News, Trump reiterated that the United States is not at war with Venezuela, but noted that Venezuela will not hold new elections in the next 30 days, as the top priority is fixing the country first. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting to address the situation. China strongly condemned the United States for launching a large-scale military action against Venezuela, accusing Washington of violating international law and destabilizing the Caribbean region. China is deeply shocked by and strongly condemns the unilateral, illegal, and bullying acts by the United States, said Sun Lei, ambassador and deputy permanent representative of China to the UN. He urged the U.S. to cease infringing on the sovereignty and security of other countries and to stop attempting to topple the government of Venezuela. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung continues his state visit to China, while his selfie with President Xi Jinping that he posted yesterday has gone viral online. Jeremy Zhu tells us more.
Lee met Premier Li Qiang this afternoon. The Chinese premier said China values its ties with South Korea and wants to keep relations friendly, build trust, and move forward together. Li replied that both countries should adapt to changing times, expand cooperation, and work jointly for peace and stability in the region. Earlier in the morning, Li also met Zhao Leji, chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress of China, who stressed that friendship underpins bilateral ties and pledged to implement the leaders' consensus. Li said he hopes to strengthen exchanges between parliaments and political parties to help develop bilateral ties further. Li's summit with Xi yesterday lasted around 90 minutes. Government departments from both sides signed 15 cooperation agreements, while business leaders from both sides explored opportunities in fields such as artificial intelligence and the entertainment industry. Following the state dinner, Li posted a selfie on social media, taken with Xi and his wife Peng Liyuan and South Korean First Lady Kim Hee-kyung. Li said the once-in-a-lifetime photos were snapped using a Xiaomi phone gifted to him by Xi during the APEC summit in South Korea last November. He described the images as high-quality and perfect live shots. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Hong Kong carrier Cathay Pacific Airways is celebrating its 80th anniversary by putting retro livery on two of its jetliners. Known as lettuce leaf sandwich, the two specially printed planes featuring the airline's iconic green and white design from the 1980s and 1990s are a Boeing 747 freight jet and an Airbus A350 passenger plane, which will operate across different routes over the coming 2 to 3 years. In addition, more than 1,000 frontline workers, including ground staff and cabin crew, will also put on uniforms from different generations throughout 2026. As the celebration goes, China's flagship carrier Air China announced today that it will sell 108.1 million shares, or 1.61% stake, in Cathay Pacific Airways for $1.32 billion. The move was described by Cathay CEO Ronald Lam as tactical, adding that the Chinese company's 27.11% stake in Cathay remains an appropriate level as a long-term strategic shareholder. Now let's take a look at the stock markets. The Hang Seng Index ended the day up 363 points. Top active stocks of the day: Alibaba was down $2, Tencent was up $8. SMIC was down 90 cents, Meituan was up 70 cents. On to the weather now. Fine, cold tomorrow morning. The minimum temperature will be about 11 degrees in the urban areas and a couple of degrees lower in the new territories. Very dry during the day with the maximum temperature of around 17 degrees. Persistently cold in the morning in the following couple of days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our news tonight. I'm Em Bai. Thank you for watching. Good night.